would the game be if it wasn't Mickey Mouse and Disney? I mean, it seems like you'd probably make the same kind of game, but...
You know, I'm not sure I would have. No one's asked me that before. You know, when I first approached Disney, Junction Point was an independent, you know, developer. I had frankly, Deus Ex with serial numbers filed off concept I was working on. I had an epic fantasy game that I've been waiting about 15 years at the time to make in the world that my wife and I created for. We created for a comic company many years ago. I was going to do something more sort of traditional, I guess, in terms of tone and content. It's actually been working with Disney that has sort of, you know, kind of got me thinking about, wow, like maybe I should make a different kind of game. It's partly just, you know, getting older and wanting to do something different, but it was like watching Tangled, and with my wife, you know, we're solid older middle-aged couple. And you know, looking at a grandfather and a grandson sitting right in front of us, and a young married couple sitting in front of them, and you know, a guy with his daughter sitting over. You know, I mean, it's like. And then I sat down with John Lasseter, you know, the Pixar guy. Right? Does anybody need to know who John is?
No.
Okay. And he said, you know, at Pixar we make entertainment for everyone. We don't think about target audiences and that sort of stuff. And I literally had a Spielberg moment, you know, like from Jaws, where the camera's zooming in and dollying out at the same time, and the world is warping all around me. And I just said, why can't a game do that? And so I think, you know, I probably would have done something different if I weren't working for Disney. But I'm really glad that you know, I was working for Disney, and I'm working for Disney, and you know, that it sort of showed me another way. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know if I would go back now. Once you get a taste of making a game that really genuinely does appeal to kids and adults, boys and girls, men and women, it's hard to go back. You know, it's hard to go back. It's an interesting question. Yeah.
So I noticed that there was definitely an attention to detail to reworking the camera system,
yeah,
just from watching the play. However, there's another complaint that I had when I originally played Epic Mickey, and that was just the jumping physics. They felt very archaic, and they didn't respond the best. And I just want to know if there was any rework in that department.
You know, we've certainly worked a lot on that stuff. I actually like the way it felt. You know, so I think it's a matter of taste. I mean, look, I'm not saying
no. I mean, yeah, I'm same thing.
So
same
I don't
way.
think it's going to be radically different, but play it and you know, see for yourself. Again, there's. I think I'm probably overstating a little bit, so you know, don't kill me if I. But I don't think there's anything we didn't change. I mean, everything's you know been tweaked and tuned and. You know, so
and
we'll see.
You did mention that you're experimenting with different control styles, but is there any Kinect integration at all?
No, we talked long and hard about that because I really think the Kinect is cool, and I would very much like to do it. But when we started doing that initial sort of brainstorming about what could we do, what came to us, your miles may vary, but what we all realized was, wow, Kinect is really good for sort of performance-oriented things, and it's really good for rail shooters, using shooter in the sort of broadest sense of the term. If you're on rails being moved through a world, it's very effective. But I've never made a game like that, and this is a game about exploring a world freely, the way you want to, going where you want to, how you want to, and there was just none of us could figure out how to do that on Kinect. And so we actually for a while talked about having a separate, you know, sort of mini game mode, which I don't want to talk about because frankly I'd like to kind of play with the Kinect, and I might do it just as a standalone thing someday. But you know, I think what you have to do is you have to make sure that the controls are appropriate for the game you're making, and not just worry about the bullet point on the back of the box. You know, so unfortunately, no Kinect support. If anybody in this room or reading whatever you guys write, or watching whatever you guys put on the screen knows how to do a free-form exploration game that doesn't involve walking in place and actually jumping, neither of which sounds like much fun to me, I am all ears.
Yeah, I hate that I'm hogging up the questions, but I do have them.
Go for it.
Well,
they'll beat you up later.
With the remark that you made that you're trying to pay an attention to detail to Disney's past as far as media, I'm curious to see, and not a lot of people give credit to it, but Disney actually has a pretty rich original history with video games. More importantly, the Magical Quest games or the Illusion games for Genesis, which this actually, it's like the spiritual successor in my opinion, because in World of Illusion 2, with Mickey and Donald, you couldn't get through the game without each other's help if you played 2-player. So I was just wondering, is there any allusion to that in this game? Is there any reference?
Not direct. But yeah, I love those games. It's funny because I made a conscious decision not to replay any of those games. I played them when they came out, but I didn't want to be directly inspired. Not inspired is fine, but I didn't want to actually find myself even subconsciously sort of ripping them off. And so I didn't play any of them again. Mm-hmm. But absolutely, I thought Disney.
I saw moments with Oswald lifting up Mickey or doing, and as you mentioned it, this all just sparked back moments of World of Illusion.
Guarantee that they're. Look, I got a team full of game guys, and gals, and we all played those games because they were really popular and really good, right? But this is also a little embarrassing. So we're doing a 3DS game too, right? Does everybody know about that? Power of Illusion? Mm-hmm. That is a direct, sequel's not the right word. That is a direct homage to Castle of Illusion, okay? If you've played Castle of Illusion, you're going to see things and do things and experience things that are going to feel very familiar in the context of a wasteland setting with paint and thinner gameplay, completely different story, different characters, different use of paint and thinner, game mechanically speaking. But absolutely a direct reference to Castle of Illusion. And here's the embarrassing part. I knew I wanted to do a handheld game. I wanted there to be a handheld game in Wasteland. Mm-hmm. And so I sort of spoke to a bunch of 3DS developers and kind of auditioned them a little bit. And I met with Peter Ong, who's the creative director at Dream Rift, which mm-hmm. did Henry Hatsworth, Monster Tale, some really remarkable games. And like 5 minutes after I sat down and talked to Peter, I said, okay, my search is done. This guy is me 20 years ago. This is awesome. And he started talking about the game about drawing that he wanted to do. He came in with that pitch, not knowing what I was going to ask him to do. And he said, I just can't think of a fictional context for this. And I said, I might have one for you, And then he started saying, yeah, and I want to do this. I want to have a fortress in the game where and you rescue characters. And I said, Suikoden. And I'm probably mispronouncing that, but do you ever remember Suikoden?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
sure.
Killer game. I loved that game. Totally influential on Deus Ex and everything I've done since. And he's like the only human I've ever worked with who wanted to. I've put a fortress that the player actually sort of builds through his choices. I've wanted to do that. It's been in every design document I've written up since I played the first Suikoden. And I've had to. It's the first thing I cut every time because it's like it's not critical to anything.
So you added the co-op for this one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you mentioned that a second player can just pick up a controller, pop in, and explore the world. And so what kind of things are available? You said you can explore areas that you couldn't really access before with a second player. So what kind of things are out there?
Well, I kind of want to let players find that out for themselves, so I don't want to get too specific. And it's not like we created specific co-op things.
Okay.
But you will, as you walk through the world early on, don't go showing them too much stuff. You'll see things way up high or off in the distance and just have no idea how to reach those things. But it's not like they're the same things that you could see elsewhere in the game, like a trapped gremlin or a really important chest. Chests are color coded, so and important. Anyway, and it just you'll have no idea how to get there. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, what I hope happens is, a father and a son will be playing together, and they'll do something that we encourage in the game, and one of them will go, oh man, that thing we saw 5 maps back when I was playing alone, I could do that now, and they'll go back and try it again. And you have no reason to believe me other than I've been doing this for 30 years and I've never lied to you yet. Okay, I did not know this until this morning. I swear this morning I thought it took 3 playthroughs to get through the entire game and see and do everything. Once sort of playing mostly as a paint sort of player, and once playing as a thinner sort of player, and once playing with a friend or a family member. And this guy this morning told me that QA figured out how to do everything in 1 playthrough, which I think is impossible. When I get back to the office, they're going to tell me how they did it. So, what I would, until this morning, what I would have told you was, there are things that literally cannot be done. Now I'm not so sure, because there are always no. I mean, that's when look when games get really special. Like this is, I saw this for the first time in 1989, before most of you were born. A player did something in a game that I had worked on that I really just thought was impossible. I mean, that blew me away, and it happened by accident. It was a bug in Ultima 6, literally specifically, and I looked at that bug and I said, I'm going to do that on purpose from now on. That is what I do for a living. I let players figure stuff out for themselves, and so I'm not upset that I was wrong. I'm thrilled. For what is for most developers, what would be a bug is actually a feature for Junction Point. You know, these guys figured out how to do something impossible. But for most normal humans, it's going to take 2 or 3 playthroughs, trust me.
Or a lot of walkthroughs.
Yeah, how long did it take you to figure that out?
It took us like 2 months of just sitting down and like several of us brainstorming on documents and like on whiteboards of like, don't do this, make sure you do this, skip that, like make sure you grab this at this point.
It's because we don't, I mean, you're not allowed to use the word puzzle at Junction Point. By the way, I'm totally getting far afield here, I know. But I can't even tell you how much I hate the word puzzle. And if anybody at my studio ever comes and tells me, this is where the player has to, I stop them right there. No, there is never a place where the player has to do something. We tell you what your goal is, but how you do it is always up to the player. And if there's ever a spot, and by the way, I'm going to get in trouble saying this, I know there are places where we've screwed up, okay? But if you find a place as you're playing this where you have to use paint, or you have to use thinner, or you have to jump on this thing at just this point, then I want you to tell me about it personally so I can have a talk with the designer or the artist or whoever came up with that little moment, okay? The whole idea is that there's never just one way to solve a problem, ever. If something's too hard, try something else. If you don't like the route you're on, it's not fun for you, try to find another route.
I missed that jump. I fell down and I thinned the trees to create a ramp for myself.
I can't even tell you how it frustrates and infuriates me that most games, like if you're not good enough to fight your way past a problem, you stop playing. We work in a medium that doesn't, that should actively discourage that kind of thinking, and we don't do it often.
I did actually have another question. So with co-op being emphasized, I've noticed, and especially in contrast to the first game, that moral decisions more or less are very black and white. It's A or B. It's paint or thinner. So there's not a lot of middle ground or depth to that other than different consequences that each route can wield. Now, you have 2 different players who can have 2 different mindsets. How do you combat that predicament? I could be Oswald and I want to thin things or do the equivalent of thinning for what Oswald does while I want to paint things as Mickey. How do you combat that scenario?
Well, first of all, I think you'll find surprising depth. I really do. The interesting thing for me is not about games that tell you what's right and wrong. I mean, I've said it before, I'll say it again, the only morality system that matters is the one between each player's ears, okay? And I'm constantly having to remind the designers that we never judge the player. Most of the people making choice and consequence games now, and thank God there are finally lots of them around, you know, they give you a meter. I mean, they say, we want you to rules lawyer this. We want you to min-max it and be a grognard. You know, if I can start using all those old, you know, wargaming terms. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to tell you what I think is right and wrong, what I think is dark and what I think is light, what I think is good and what I think is bad. Who cares what I think? What matters is what you think. And as you start making those choices about, you know, is it better to stop and help everybody and take the risk and use your resources in this way, or is it better to be super efficient and make yourself personally more powerful by going after certain kinds of rewards, which you'll get from certain kinds of people behaving in certain? Which one is a hero?
Well, right.
You'll find surprising depth. Okay.
I apologize if I portrayed my question, because as I meant paint and thinning,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to attach a stigma of morality, because
most people do, so that's why I'm reacting.
But that's the thing. I mean, morality, as you've mentioned, it's ambiguous to what the player chooses. But what the core, my question is I want to play with another individual.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
Like I said, you asked 3 questions. I'm going to answer all of them. I promise. I'm going to get there.
Before you move on, can I just say that like I could have gotten through this level without shooting paint at anything or thinner at anything. I showed you guys because there's a lot of interesting stuff to see when you're restoring, and there's a lot of interesting stuff to see when you're destroying. But you can go down to the floor, and if I ever have a free moment, I can play through this and not touch those triggers.
That's true for the entire game. You can literally get through the game without ever using paint or without ever using thinner. You can befriend 100% of things in the game, including the bosses and the sub-bosses, or you can erase 100% of the things in the game. Because, to answer a second part, or to address the second part of your question, I'm going to answer all of them.
Okay.
Oswald doesn't use paint. Oswald uses electricity and has some movement capabilities that Mickey doesn't have. And the ability to interact with mechanical things at a distance, which Mickey doesn't have. So they have complementary skill sets, and that's exactly, they have completely different skill sets, which means to accomplish things, they must work together. Okay, it's not like I do 3 to 8 points of damage with something that looks like a fireball, and you do 3 to 8 points of damage with something that looks like a spear, or even it's probably a little more like I do 3 to 8 points of damage with something that looks like a fireball, and you do 3 to 8 points of healing. But it's actually, I think, more interesting than that. They have complementary skill sets where working together they can go places and do things that they can't do separately. So there's that. Now, Mickey's always in charge. To answer the third part of your question, the Mickey player is in charge. In single player, that's absolutely true. In multiplayer, I mean, like Mickey can call Oswald over and say, I mean, we have a control mechanism that will allow Mickey to attract Oswald, and Oswald is smart enough to sort of contextually decide what Mickey probably wants him to do. And there are specific places in the game where Oswald, if Mickey gets close enough to those places, we've sort of pre-programmed things so like an icon will show up and there's something Oswald can do there to help Mickey. But when a second player shows up, first of all of Oswald's abilities are useful everywhere, which means that players can construct their own strategies to get places and do things in ways that we didn't anticipate. And the second thing is, damn, they can grief each other all they want. I mean, that's like the first thing people do, right? I mean, when a second player sits down, they start spin attacking each other and knocking each other into thinner pools, and it's just kind of good. I mean, it really is genuine fun to do that. If I'd been smarter, we probably would have had some sort of competitive, combat mode or something. But here's the thing: there's no online co-op. It's just split screen couch co-op. Okay. Because what we want is people actually socializing, not virtually socializing. We want them figuring out, what do we want to do? The Geek Club is about to go even higher. I became a gamer in 1978, okay, when I played D&D for the first time. And I have spent the last, what would that be, 34 years trying to recreate that feeling again, of telling a story with my friends. And screwing over the game master, the dungeon master in D&D terms, and telling our story. And so this is like the first baby step. I'm not saying we have solved the co-op storytelling problem in electronic gaming. We have not. We haven't even come close. But neither is anybody else, okay? And I want people sitting together, figuring out how to work together to accomplish mutual goals and tell their unique story. And that's why I'm not annoyed, I'm just a little weirded out that you can do so much in one playthrough, because what I really wanted was for people to see how you play really makes a difference. And if you play through primarily using paint, you see and do and get one thing, and the world ends up looking a specific way, and certain characters end up liking you and not liking you. If you play through a thinner way, you see a different sort of outcome, even though Mickey's always going to save the world. just to be clear, okay? And then you have to play through again with someone else to see that, you know, the power of 2 makes for a completely different experience. And it's kind of weirding me out that that's not actually the case. But anyway. Did that answer? I think that answered.
Yeah, that answers.
Maybe not to your satisfaction. But
Well,
that's
no,
the answer I got.
it honestly did, because the moment you stated that Mickey is the source of authority in terms of actions, you justified that by saying, hey, you wanted people to sit down and basically do coach huddle, spill some Gatorade and get dirty. And given the I mean, that's the other thing that weirds people out. It weirds me out, actually.
You know, when I play, like, okay, I'm not going to name specific names, but most games try to get you in this weird sort of flow. So no, it's this beautiful sort of flow state where you're just constantly moving forward like a shark and doing stuff. And it kind of bugs me in a weird sort of way that none of my games it feels like that. To me, I mean, like my games, I always have to tell everybody, don't worry about the flow issue. Don't worry about that, because the way we want the game to feel is you get to a spot, you stop, you look around, you make a plan, then it's go, 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 go. Get to a sort of a decision point or a strategically interesting point, and it's assess the situation, make a plan, go, 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 go. So there's this real staccato sort of thing, and that plays really well with the 2-player mode as well. It's like you get to a place, you look around, you go, what do we want to do? The game is actually structured in a way that encourages that sort of discussion. It doesn't punish it particularly, it encourages it.
So you have split screen, so like Oswald can go off on one side of the map and Mickey can go on the other side of the map pretty much and do their own thing, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you're not going to get real far doing that, but you could, sure.
Okay.